Well, on the heels of that little rant is Dot. So on December 31st, I completed the transition of AgriTrend and AgriData to Trimble. That was done on December 31st, 2018. And then on January 8th, I sat down with Norbert Bugeaud, inventor of Dot and owner of Seedmaster, and agreed to take on the commercialization of Dot. So Leah Olson has been CEO of Dot Technology Corp. So she's involved in manufacturing and the implement partner relationships for Dot, and they wanted somebody to head the commercialization side. So as of January 8th, I became the CEO of Dot Farm Solutions to take the autonomous platform forward into the marketplace, and that's a long range job, Terry. That's a job that will take many years to work through. And so, I had a 7-day retirement there for a while. I was, good start to the year. But anyway, so I've done the Dot thing, and then I'm sure we'll talk about a new startup that is being launched on July 16th called AgVisor Pro. So other than that, doing nothing much.
For sure. So just the average day in a serial entrepreneur. Hey, so this Dot thing. I mean, is something that we're quite interested in on the farm and in agriculture. I think that I've always said that I've always believed in the last few years that autonomy is going to come to the farm, and it's going to come much quicker than we think. Much like any technology. And I remember a couple years ago having a chat with at our advisory meetings with the farm team that we do yearly, and talking about the disruption of technology in industries, and saying that autonomy. I believe autonomy is going to come much quicker than we think into agriculture. And it's probably going to come from an area that we don't expect. It's not necessarily going to come from John Deere or Case. And then it was literally a couple months later where Dot was announced, and it was really cool. So we've been kind of involved in following that. And I think there's a lot of challenges there, but there's also a lot of opportunities. Exciting to see some of the things that are starting to evolve as this is being brought to market.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement. I like what you said there, that autonomy was going to come from where you didn't expect it. There's lots of people pursuing robots in agriculture. No shortage of companies. Most of them are small platforms. Most of them are small robots dealing in the areas of greenhouses or vineyards. And Dot is exactly the opposite. Dot is targeted for broad acre agriculture. Dot, she's 175 horsepower. We refer to Dot as she because Dot is named after Norbert Bugeaud's mother, Dorothy. So we call Dot Dot. And Dot's got 175 horsepower Tier 4 Cummins engine. It's got 4 hydrostatically independently driven tires. Like I mentioned, the computer's on it, and it's a U-shaped platform. So it's a U-shaped design that's capable of clipping and docking with one unit, like a seeder, unclipping and going and clipping in with a sprayer. It can unclip from the sprayer, go to a fertilizer spreader. So Dot has the ability to have a lot of flexibility in terms of utility. A lot of idiots there, but anyways, So Dot has the opportunity to be a piece of equipment, a drivetrain, a powertrain, an autonomous, 100% autonomous powertrain that can go from device to device to device. So it can keep working through the whole year. And of course, if you could have on your farm, Terry, you would need to have something like about 5 or 6 Dots on your farm. And that would change the face of how things are happening on your farm.
Yeah, I think I really love that story and the marketing behind it. Obviously, the Dot platform and the C.Run kind of campaign. But when we heard Norbert tell that story about his his mother, and he talked about how efficient she was, and he told this story. I remember telling us about how his mom, when sweeping the floor, she cut a little hole in the floor underneath the sink and put a little pail in the basement underneath there, and she just sweep it into the hole, and just little things like that made things so efficient. And Norbert's just a brilliant mind, brilliant guy. A lot of the things that he's thought of are very simple, but also tie in a lot of new technology or new ways to look at things. And so I just think that's a really cool story behind that all too.
I should probably highlight the fact that the seeder for Dot that was in seeding this year's crops with the farmers that we were working with this year, that seeder was referred to as a SR, which is a single rank, Terry. And that seeder is one rank, 15-inch on center, but it's got these clearing devices, these trash clearing devices to get the crop residue out of the way. That worked so very well. I'm really excited to see the outcome of what happened there. We were in very heavy trash conditions, and that was seeding very, very well. And on top of Dot is the Ultra Pro seeding system. And the Ultra Pro seeding system was just this winter tested by PAMI, the Prairie Agricultural Machinery Institute. And the variation between runs on that Ultra Pro system is down to as low as 3%. So you've got a system that provides very, very accurate seed placement and seed distribution. And that's going to really play well, I think, with farmers as they continue to face expensive seed costs. We think that Dot not only could plant the crop autonomously, but the seeding system that we have brought out for it, the SR 300 bushel SR single rank 30 foot, will allow Dot to place that seed very, very, very cleanly, very, very precisely. So that's going to be interesting to watch, Terry.
Yeah, for sure. So Holden, what do you think about all this robots and autonomy and agriculture? I mean, if you're going to be thinking about being a farmer in 10 years from now, are you going to be doing it all in the age of muscle back in 1.0 like Rob was talking about, or how do you think these robots and autonomy is going to fit in?
I think it will fit in nicely. Like, it's a lot easier for, like, if you're working all day, it's probably a lot easier because since it goes on by itself and drives and seeds, that you will get more time to do other stuff. Like when I was helping my dad build the or get the seeder ready, it would have been a lot nicer to have one thing already seeding and we doing something else, so then you can do things a lot more faster.
So what are you going to do with all that extra time that the robots give you?
You could, like, if you have kids, spend more time with them, or could have more free time to do different stuff, or have like hobbies that you can do.
For sure. And actually that's one of the themes that we talked about when thinking about the benefits of this type of farming system, is actually changing that culture of agriculture where we're worked to the bone, and working so hard and no time for anything. And my dad has a great saying where, in his age where he grew up, his comment was, whoever worked the hardest got ahead. Whoever, plowed, spend another hour in the field plowing or seeding or whatever it is, it kind of came down to how hard you were willing to work. And now that's not going to be what gets you ahead. It's about how well you run your business and manage things, and you got to have the knowledge and planning and all that stuff, right? And so I think this is one of the things that, looking in the big picture, this type of technology and system can allow you to, operate at times when you don't always have to have everybody there. And I think, people are still struggling. I think we're having these conversations. They look at the dot and the parts of the dot, the engine, the machine, the wheels, and they're trying to associate the value of the iron, so to speak. Really, the real value there is going to be the software and the technology and the intelligence that's built into the machine, so it can operate in a simple way and on its own. And it's a whole different platform from beginning to end than your traditional farm equipment setup.
Well, for sure. I think that's one of the biggest changes. And on social media, when we post about DOT, we get lots of questions around it. And a lot of questions tend to gravitate towards the technology side. And DOT has done the DOT team, DOT Tech Corp, has done a great job of pulling together some tremendous talent. I mean, if you go up into that second floor in Regina there, I don't know, there's somewhere between 12 and 16 technicians working. And some of these young people are robotic champions. I mean, we've got a number of these guys that have worked together and have taken top honors in the North American robotic contest. So, I was getting hit up on Twitter the other day saying, what makes you believe that you guys can do this when the big guys haven't brought it out yet? And, well, that's the way anything's ever been done. It's always the small guys that do the innovation. It's always the small guys that crack the wicked problems and crack the code and bring it out. And, it's not the big guys that bring out innovation. John Deere's got a good air seeder, but it came from Conservapac, so it's these guys that these people in late places like Seedmaster DOT and that buckle down and try to solve wicked problems. That's where it's always come from. That's how innovation happens.